Good afternoon, everybody. We are expecting Eduardo Luna, so we can get started here in just a minute. All right, I'll call this meeting to order. This is a public hearing of the Metropolitan Board of Zoning Appeals, Division 1. I am Peter Nelson, acting chairperson of Division 1. The other members present are Matt Boone and Eduardo Luna. Legal counsel for the board today is Chris Steinmetz. Staff present today from the Division of Planning are Eddie Honea, Principal Planner 2, Robert Eulenhake, Senior Planner, Marlene Ireta, Senior Planner, Genesis Hill, Associate Planner, and Heather Steffen, Senior Specialist and Secretary to the Board. Matt Pleasant is the current Planning Administrator. The Board has copies of the zoning ordinances that will be incorporated by reference into the record of each case heard today. The proceedings of this hearing are governed by the Board's rules of procedure. The expedited cases will be heard immediately after all requests for continuances or withdrawals. As each non-expedited case is called, petitioners and remonstrators interested in that particular case will please stand. Those who intend to testify will please remain standing and be sworn. Petitioners should be on your left and remonstrators on your right as you face the board. Those who testify will state their name and address for the record before beginning to testify. Petitioners and persons appearing in support of the case being heard shall have a maximum of 15 minutes for the presentation of evidence, statements, and arguments in support of the petition. Remonstrators and persons appearing in opposition to the petition shall have a maximum of 15 minutes for the presentation of evidence, statements, and arguments of the opposition to the petition. Staff will then present the administrator's comments regarding the petition. The petitioners will then be allowed 5 minutes for a rebuttal and a summation of the case. Rebuttal must be limited to the subject matter of the initial presentations. Remonstrators will then be allowed 5 minutes for a rebuttal of the petitioner's rebuttal of evidence and a brief closing statement. No further evidence, statements, or arguments will be heard unless it is at the discretion of the board. Please limit your testimony and evidence to matters covered in the statutory requirements, which must be met in order for the board to grant a variance. If the petitioners have failed to comply with all notice requirements as stipulated by the board's rules of procedure, including posting of the notice sign on subject property at least 23 days prior to the hearing, the board may continue the petition. Anyone at this hearing who thinks complete and proper notice has not been given and would like the petition continued due to lack of proper notice must bring this matter to the board's attention at the beginning of the hearing. The board may impose various conditions or commitments as amendments before reaching a decision on certain petitions. The installation of landscaping and screening, the paving of parking area, and the dedication of rights-of-way are examples. These conditions and commitments are an integral part of the board's decision and must be met for a granted variance to be valid. Compliance with conditions imposed by the board must be proved by an affidavit of compliance submitted by the petitioner within 30 days of completion. Unless otherwise specified, an improvement location permit must be obtained prior to the establishment of the authorized improvements. Failure to comply with any conditions or commitments of a variance grant is a violation enforceable by the Department of Business and Neighborhood Services. A person may file a written request to receive notice of the filing of a petition for judicial review of a decision by the board. The written request must be filed within 5 days of the board's decision and must include the person's full name and correct mailing address and a reference to the board petitions number. Forms are available and may be obtained from the board secretary. Please be advised that contacting members of the board regarding matter pending before the board outside of this public hearing is prohibited. Please be courteous and orderly at all times, and please be sure all cell phone ringers are turned off. I do want to note that there are only 3 board members present today. Your request will need 3 votes to take action on a request. Any vote that is not unanimous is an indecisive vote, and if an indecisive vote occurs, your petition will be automatically continued to the next hearing of the board. We will take this into consideration when hearing special requests. Is there anyone in the audience who has any questions about our procedures? Okay, before we hear special requests, I will ask for a waiver of our rules of procedure to allow the board to vote for all expedited petitions and adopt their findings of fact without any additional testimony from the individual petitioners.
Yes.
Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Okay, motion by Boone. Do we have a second?
Yes.
Okay, motion and a second, so I'll call for a vote. Boone,
Yes.
Luna,
Yes.
and Nelson, yes. With that, we will consider special requests and continuances at this time. Okay, is there anyone in the audience that has an interest in 2022 UV1011 at 8620 West 82nd Street? Okay, staff, do you have any comments?
Thank you, Chairperson Nelson and members of the board. Can you hear me? I'll speak a little louder. Staff has no objection with placing the petition 2022-UV1-011 on the expedited portion of the docket, subject to the commitment per PTRA's request. I'm happy to answer any questions if you may have them.
Okay, staff, or excuse me, board, we have a request to move petition 2022 UV1011 to the expedited docket. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
And do we have a second?
Second.
All right, I will call for a vote. Boone,
Yes.
Luna,
Yes.
and Nelson, yes.
Good afternoon, Chair Nelson, members of the board. Alex Ittermill with offices at 111 Monument Circle, Indianapolis, Suite 2700, here on case number 2022 DV1019. I was here last month and asked for a continuance so that the petitioner might work with its design team to see if we could get the sign into compliance with the area requirement and also the height requirement. Just yesterday afternoon, and then discussing the same with staff this morning, we did that, and so the plans for the proposed sign now constitute a pylon sign, which gives it to 25 feet instead of 20 feet for a pole sign, and also we adjusted the area so that it comes within the 300 square feet allowed. So my first request would be that we would withdraw the variance requests for the height and the area of the sign. And then that just leaves the two remaining variances for an additional sign in an integrated center, and then also the proximity within 300 feet of the Taco Bell sign that is there as well. In staff's report, they suggested if we could get to compliance on the height and the area, they would support the proximity and the additional integrated center sign. believe that's still the case. And with those two, with staff support, we would ask that we be moved to the expedited docket as well.
Okay, is there anyone in the audience with an interest in 2022 DV1019? Okay, staff, do you have any comments?
Chairperson Nelson and members of the board, staff is aware that the petitioner did make the adjustments as recommended by staff. Therefore, we are comfortable with the petition as amended and can be placed on the expedited portion of the docket.
Chairperson Nelson?
Yes.
Can we please have the board acknowledge the withdrawal of the request regarding sign height and area?
Yes, sign height and area withdrawal request is noted.
Thank you.
Okay, board, we have a request to move 2022 DV1019 to the expedited petition. Can I get a motion?
I motion.
And a second?
Second.
All right, I'll call for a vote. Boone,
Yes.
Luna,
Yes.
Nelson's yes.
Good afternoon, board. My name is Garrett Lawton, office located at 143 West Market Street, Suite 600A, here for petition number 2022 UV1002. We were here before you last month and requested a continuance to get some additional time to work through some concerns of neighborhood associations. We requested continuance to the July 5th meeting before you to continue to address those concerns, and also due to the potential for an indecisive vote today.
Is there anyone in the audience with an interest in 2022 UV1002 at 2535 East 79th Street? Staff?
Thank you, Chairperson Nelson and members of the board. Staff is supportive of the continuance request to the July 5th, 2022 hearing date, solely because there is not a full board today. Staff would request that this be the final continuance allotted to the petitioner. Thank you.
All right, board, we have a request to continue 2022 UV1002 to the July 5th meeting. Can I get a motion
I motion.
and a second?
Second.
Okay, calling for a vote. Boone,
Yes.
Luna,
Yes.
and Nelson's yes.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Acting Chair Nelson, members of the board. My name is Paul Lambie, office address 1026 North Midhofer Road, Indianapolis. Here today representing petitioner RCA Properties on continued petition 2022 DV1026, property at 717 Shelby Street. This petition was continued from your May hearing due to an automatic continuance being filed by Fountain Square Neighborhood Association. It's my understanding that another neighborhood organization, North Square Neighborhood Association, has requested an additional continuance, which would be for cause. We are in agreement with the need for a continuance, and we intend to meet with the neighborhood groups. We're not able to meet in June, so since we'll be meeting in July after your July meeting, I believe it would make most sense to continue to August 2nd. And that should be without additional notice unless the petition changes. And I'm not sure if anybody's here representing neighborhood groups.
Is there anyone in the audience with a special interest in 2022 DV1026, 717 Shelby Street? Staff?
Thank you, Chairperson Nelson and members of the board. Staff is supportive of the continuance request to further discussions with the neighborhood organizations. And we are okay with the August 2nd hearing date as well, with no new notice, only if it's needed or amended.
Okay, board, we have a request 2022 DV1026 to continue to the August 2nd board meeting with additional notice if needed. Do we have a motion?
Motion?
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, call for a vote. Boone,
Yes.
Luna,
Yes.
Nelson's yes.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, members of the board. My name is Chris Barnett with Habitat for Humanity at 3135 North Meridian Street in Indianapolis. I'm here in regard to case number 2022 DV1029. It has come to our attention that we need to withdraw the request for variance for compensatory storage as it is not needed, and we would like to move the petition, the remaining petition, to the expedited portion of the docket.
Withdrawal of the storage request is noted. Is there anyone in the audience that has any interest in 2022 DV1029 32 South Vine Street? Okay, comments from staff?
Thank you, Chairperson and members of the board. Staff have no objection to placing petition 2022-DV1-029 on the expedited portion of the docket as amended.
And would that require additional notice or no?
The request is to place it on the expedited portion of the docket.
So yeah, okay, I should know that. Thank you. All right, board, we have a request to move 2022 DV1029 to the expedited petition, or to the expedited petitions. Do we have a motion?
I motion?
And a second?
Second.
All right, call for a vote. Boone,
Yes.
Luna,
Yes.
Nelson is yes.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairperson Nelson, members of the board. Joe Calderon, 11 South Meridian, Indianapolis. I represent the petitioner in 2022 DV1030, which is simply a withdrawal, but with one additional request attached to it. We discovered through our planner that there were some zoning commitments associated with this property that needed to be modified. So we filed a companion petition combining the modification of commitments and the variance under case 2022 CAP CVR 827. So in addition to acknowledging the withdrawal of 2022 DV1030, if you would please consider allowing the filing fee that was paid for the variance to be transferred and applied to the combined case, it would be most appreciated.
Is there anyone in the audience with an interest in 2022 DV1030? Okay, let's hear from staff.
Staff is supportive of the transfer fee request. Thank you.
Okay, withdrawal of the petition has been noted. Board, we do have a request to move the fees from 2022 DV1030 to transfer those fees. Do we have a motion for that?
I motion?
And is there a second?
Second.
All right, calling for a vote. Boone,
Yes.
Luna,
Yes.
and Nelson's yes.
Thank you.
Chairperson Nelson, members of the board, can you pull the audience, see if the petitioner for petition number 2022 UV1009, located at 8930 West Washington Street, is in attendance?
Is the petitioner for that case in attendance? 2022 UV1009?
They had submitted a request to withdraw the petition. I'm not sure if they understood they needed to do that in person, but if, excuse me, not withdrawn, to continue the petition. If not, I believe there is a remonstrator here, but there's been several emails going across involving the city county councilor and adjacent property owners, so I will go ahead and make the continuance request for her on her behalf, and that will be for petition number 2022 UV1-009, located at 8930 West Washington Street. The petitioner is requesting a 2-month continuance to the August 2nd, 2022 hearing. That would be without additional notice.
Okay, is there anyone in the audience with an interest in 2022 UV1009?
Mr.
Go
Chairman,
ahead, state your name and address, please.
it's Brian Toohey. My address is 50 South Meridian. I represent the Indianapolis Airport Authority, which is a neighboring property owner to this petition. We don't have any objection to the continuance to the August date. We would, for the record, state that we would prefer that be the last continuance, because this would be the second continuance, which would now push it about 3 months past the original date.
Okay, thank you. Board, we have a request to move continued 2022 UV1009 to the August 2nd date without additional notice. Do we have a motion
I motion.
and a second?
Second.
All right, calling for a vote. Boone,
Yes.
Luna,
Yes. Yes.
Nelson is yes.
Thank you. Staff will also draw your attention to petition number 2022 DV1011, located at 1422 English Avenue. This is the first continued petition. Petitioner continues to try to amend this petition, and they have been working with the neighborhood, and they're requesting one final continuance for 1 month to the July 5th, and this will be on behalf of the petitioner, again, without notice, and this will be the last petition staff will support for this petition as well. This will be, this will be the last continuance staff will support for this petition as well.
Okay, is there anyone in the audience with an interest in 2022 DV1011, 1422 English Avenue? Okay, board, we have a request to continue 2022 DV1011 to the July 5th meeting without additional notice. Do we have a motion
I motion.
and a second?
Second.
Calling for a vote. Boone,
Yes.
Luna,
Yes.
Nelson's yes.
Thank you. Staff will draw your attention to petition number 2022 UV1014, located at 5200 North High School Road. Timely automatic continuance was filed by a registered neighborhood organization continuing this petition to the July 5th, 2022 hearing. This would just require the board's acknowledgement.
So acknowledged.
Thank you. Following that, staff will draw your attention to petition number 2022 UV1015, located at 4400 Sam Jones Expressway. Timely automatic continuance was filed for this petition as well by a registered neighborhood organization continuing this to the July 5th, 2022 hearing. This would just require your acknowledgement.
So acknowledged.
Thank you.
Chairperson Nelson and members of the board, staff will draw your attention to petition, sorry, let me find it, I got a little lost. Petition 2022-UV1-010, address at 2211, 2213, 2215, 2217, 2219, and 2143 Prospect Street. Staff would request a continuance to the July 5th, 2022 hearing date with additional notice due to a discrepancy with the address that was published.
Okay, is there anyone in the audience with interest in 2022 UV1010? Okay, board, we have a request to move 2022 UV1010 to the July 5th meeting with additional notice. Is there a motion?
I motion.
Second?
Second.
All right, calling for a vote. Boone,
Yes.
Luna,
Yes.
Nelson's yes.
Chairperson Nelson and members of the board, staff will draw your attention again to petition 2022-UV1-012, address at 5531 East 82nd Street. A timely automatic continuance request was submitted by a registered neighborhood organization, continuing this to the July 5th, 2022 hearing date, and that would require the board's acknowledgement.
So acknowledged.
Thank you. Staff will draw your attention to petition 2022-UV1-013, address at 4015 East 82nd Street. A timely automatic continuance request was submitted by a registered neighborhood organization, continuing this matter to the July 5th, 2022 hearing date, and that would require the board's acknowledgement.
So acknowledged.
Thank you. And lastly, staff will draw your attention to petition 2022-UV1-016, address at 1060 Broad Ripple Avenue. A timely automatic continuance request was also submitted for this petition, continuing this matter to the July 5th, 2022 hearing date, and that would require the board's acknowledgement as well.
So acknowledged.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson Nelson and members of the board. Staff would draw your attention to 2022 HOV 004 for 2363 North Parker Avenue. A registered neighborhood organization has filed a timely automatic continuance, continuing this from today's hearing to the July 5th hearing, which would require your acknowledgement.
So acknowledged.
Staff would draw your attention to 2022 UV1017 for 9067 Crawfordsville Road. A registered neighborhood organization has filed a timely automatic continuance, continuing this to the July 5th hearing. This would require your acknowledgement.
So acknowledged.
And lastly, petition number 2022 DV1021 under your continued petitions for 1868 Lafayette Road. This petition has been withdrawn at the request of the petitioner. This would require your acknowledgement.
So acknowledged. Are there any other special requests at this time? All right, seeing none, we can now proceed to the expedited docket.
UV1011 8620 West 82nd Street, Pike Township, Council District 1, Zone DA, Dish Wireless LLC by Stephen E. Carr, requesting a variance of use and development standards of the Consolidated Zoning and Subdivision Ordinance to provide for a 145-foot tall monopole wireless communication tower with a 5-foot lightning rod not permitted, with landscaping on 2 sides of the tower site, landscaping around entire tower site required. 2022 DV1019 amended petition 5329 and 5425 East Thompson Road, Franklin Township, Council District 18, Zone C4, Melrose, Indiana Holdings, LLC by Alex C. Intermal, requesting a variance of development standards of the Consolidated Zoning and Subdivision Ordinance to provide for a 25-foot tall, 300-square-foot pylon sign located 220 feet from another pole sign, being the third sign, along an integrated center frontage, maximum 2 signs per frontage permitted, minimum 300-foot separation required. 2022 DV1029 amended petition 32 South Vine Street, Wayne Township, Council District 25, Zone D5 FF, Habitat for Humanity of Greater Indianapolis by Chris Barnett, requesting a variance of development standards of the Consolidated Zoning and Subdivision Ordinance to legally establish a single-family dwelling and provide for a deck addition at an elevation of 1.1 feet above base flood elevation, 2 feet above base flood elevation required. Is there anyone here today in opposition to any of the petitions I've just read into the record? Can you come forward, please? Were you here when they pulled the audience for moving this to the expedited docket?
I don't know. I don't remember that, no.
Which petition are you opposed to?
2022 DV1028 5420 East Thompson Road.
I've not read that one.
Oh, there you go.
So all is good. Chairman, that's the end of the expedited docket.
All right, Heather, since you pulled the audience for opposition and seeing none for the expedited, I will go ahead and instruct the board to cast their votes using the ballots.
For petitions 2022 UV1011, 2022 DV1019, 2022 DV1029, 3 votes cast, 3 yes votes. All the expedited petitions are approved, and petitioners are free to leave if you have no additional business with the board. Are you ready for me to go forward, Mr. Nelson?
Yes, we can move on to the non-expedited cases, please.
2022 DV1023, 4330 Michigan Road, Washington Township, Council District 8, Zoned SU2, Flood Fringe. International School of Indiana by Craig Flandermeyer, requesting a variance of development standards of the Consolidated Zoning and Subdivision Ordinance to provide for a 6-foot tall ornamental and chain link fence in the front yard along Michigan Road, maximum 3.5 foot tall fence permitted. All persons speaking on this today, please step forward to be sworn in. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalty for perjury to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. Petitioner, please step forward and state your name and address for the record.
Chairperson Nelson, members of the board, staff. My name is Sarah Hempstead. I will be playing Craig Flandermeyer today. I'm the CEO of Schmidt Associates and the architect of record for the International School. 415 Massachusetts Avenue, Indianapolis is the address of Schmidt. I'm representing the International School of Indiana today, located at 4330 Michigan Road. The Michigan Road site is a 63-plus acre site. It's a full campus just north of the Wright River, home to 3 campus buildings containing a high school, a middle school, and a brand new lower school. By the time the construction of the new lower school is complete, which it is almost, it will be by school next year, the campus will be set to have over 700 children there daily. The new lower school will officially welcome students this August 2022. I have with me here and in attendance head of school, school leadership, board members, and some of the students who will be attending school on this campus. Wave, kids. You're being very good. Excellent. They're in their school uniforms today, and it's summer vacation, so bonus points all around. The site fronts Michigan Road, which is a heavily traveled primary arterial street. There are 24,000 plus cars on Michigan Road every single day. The immediate neighbors to the campus along Michigan are an estate-scale residence to the east, with Newfields, the Christian Theological Seminary, Butler University, and Crown Hill Cemetery to the south. There are large residential and condominium associations abutting the north and west, but they are considerably removed from our site by distance and the topography of the site, which varies greatly. It's a differential of about 50 feet from one of those neighborhoods to our site. We're here today because the safety and security of our students is our first and foremost priority. It is the goal of our school. Recent national atrocities have continued to spotlight the absolute necessity for school security. The specific security concerns on this site include both unauthorized cars and individuals on foot entering this campus. We have had police pursuits on campus. We have unauthorized vehicles on campus frequently. We've had campus lockdowns on campus. The use of this site as a campus does also increase the necessity to mitigate external threats. These 3 buildings act as one comprehensive school campus. So daily, throughout the day, students as young as 3 will traverse throughout the site in order to hit other site amenities like fields, gymnasiums, and the cafeteria that are shared between buildings. In addition, we have young children, again, as young as 3, who access the playgrounds that are on this site, and it's necessary to keep them safe from just traffic, in addition to more existential threats. We've had an analysis from a security consultant that is separate from Schmidt Associates, identify specific security needs on this site. They identified the security of the perimeter as a high priority. You have the report of the security professional in your packet. The need is so great that partial funding from the Department of Homeland Security has been given to the school specifically for the perimeter fencing of this site. Securing the east perimeter along Michigan Road with a 6-foot-high ornamental metal picket fence is proposed because the ordinance allowed 3-foot, 6-foot fence is not a significant deterrent for foot traffic or automobile traffic. I say if I can jump a fence in my heels, it is not, which I can jump a 3.5-foot fence in my heels, that is not a significant deterrent for this site. Through the variance process, we have notified all adjacent landowners and community groups. There have been no concerns or objections raised to the fence. Along Michigan Avenue, the fence will be an ornamental metal fence. It will be installed on the school property outside of the right-of-way, approximately 45 feet from the edge of the road. The elevation of Michigan Road, notably, is 3.5 feet higher, more or less, than our site. So though the fence will be tall, it will actually be installed significantly lower than the height of the road itself. So the full height will not be realized until you're down at the base of the fence trying to climb it. Several individuals and institutions have provided letters of support for this variance, including our immediate neighbors to both the north and the south. In fact, our neighbor to the north is excited enough they've offered to help pay for some of the cost of the fence, which is wonderful. Respectfully, we do ask that the board votes to approve the variance of the 6-foot ornamental fence in the front yard. Again, fence treatment along Michigan Road in this immediate area, it is not out of character. It will not affect the health, safety, welfare, or property values of any of our neighbors. And strict adherence to the zoning ordinance in this case provides the practical difficulty that a 3-foot 6-inch fence will not secure our campus site and protect our students adequately.
Thank you. Is anyone else speaking in support of this petition?
Good afternoon. My name is Elizabeth Head. I'm the head of school of the International School of Indiana. I come to you today to plea on behalf of 3-year-old through 18-year-old children, some of them represented here today, in addition to city representatives, ISI board of directors, parents who are all in the audience today, especially in the light of recent events that have happened at schools not only in the last couple of weeks, but many schools over the last few years. I beg you to please allow us to have a fence that will actually protect our children. The 3-year-olds are the closest students to Michigan Road in the new building that has recently been built. They are a walking distance away from that Michigan Road. In addition, not only do we need to protect our campus from people intruding on our campus, which has happened on multiple occasions recently in the last couple of years, in addition, we have 3-year-olds who can run from the campus toward Michigan Road, and a 3-foot fence for some children is easily jumpable. I ask you to please consider that we need to proceed on the fence, and we need to proceed now, because if we don't, we will not have the fence built for the first day of school, when all of our students will be walking around this campus openly, which is completely exposed to Michigan Road at this time. We need to proceed now so that the students are protected on the first day of school. Thank you very much.
Sorry, could you state your address for the record as well?
4330 Michigan Road, the International School of Indiana.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Monroe Gray, City County Council, District 8. The International School is in my district and has been a part of my district ever since it was built. There's none of the neighborhood organizations in there have any opposition to this fence. I've talked to all of them. And to say that this fence is, it would be difficult to tell that this fence is 6 feet tall if you look at it from Michigan Road. As you go up Michigan Road, you will see all kinds of fences. This is not the first fence, or this is not the one fence that will be any kind of way detrimental or harmful to the view on Michigan Road. Michigan Road the fence would be far enough from Michigan Road so that with just the eyesight, there's no way that you can tell that this fence is 6 feet tall or 3 feet tall due to the elevation of the ground. I'll talk with the neighbors. There's no neighbors no residents on Michigan Road between 38th Street and 52nd Street. The only house that would be involved would be the house on the corner of Cold Spring Road and Michigan Road, and that address is a Cold Spring address, not a Michigan Road address. If you go just a few feet farther on the northeast side of the town, there's a large development there which has a fence over 6 feet tall that protects their property. If you look across the street, there's another fence there that protects their property. So I can find no reason why that this fence should not be erected, and I think that is a great safety precaution for the kids. With all the things that happen in the country today around schools, anything that we can do to make it a safer place, then that is upon us to do that. So I would strongly urge you to grant this proposal and let the fence be built, not only for just if nothing else, for the safety of the kids and help to beautify the area. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. I will go ahead and ask, I didn't see anybody, but I'll ask, is there anyone here speaking in opposition to 2022 DV1 023?
Chairman, good afternoon. My name is Vop Osili. I serve as president of the Indianapolis City County Council, and I'm here this afternoon actually in support of this variance request. It's been said already that in light of recent events across the country, that school security is paramount. And being very familiar with the International School of Indiana, my daughter participating in sports there on a regular basis, I'm probably personally concerned about this. Many years ago, I happened to work on Crystal DeHaan's house. This is in 2005, 2006, and was part of that petition request for the 10-foot wall. I know that there's a concern that this is a residential street, but I will say that with 24,000 cars that pass a day, it hardly feels residential. And having no other neighbors, no other residential neighbors within view, I don't know that it would be in keeping or would be a difficult stretch to see the school having a 6 foot iron fence. So I am here in support of the school and those who are neighbors. I do understand that all of the neighbors surrounding this are supportive of this request. And I join my voice to theirs, asking for this development, this variance of development standards. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no one in opposition and hearing from the counselors, I will move to staff comments.
Thank you, Chairperson Nelson and members of the board. As you are aware, staff is recommending denial of the petition request. Fence height in the front yard should be limited to 3.5 feet as per the ordinance. Inside and rear yards, it should be 6 feet, or could be 6 feet. I would state that there are various schools around Indianapolis that operate without a 6-foot high fence in the front yard. The closest structure on the site is 140 feet away from Michigan Road. That being said, staff is not supportive of the fence height that exceeds 3.5 feet, mainly due to the fact that there is no practical difficulty. To the northwest and east, there are residential neighborhoods. The reason for fence height limitations is really to promote and preserve residential aesthetics. Additionally, similar screening can be achieved through landscaping. To note, if children are running towards the street, maybe there could be fencing around the play areas so that they don't run towards the street. In the findings of fact, it might have been a little bit lacking, but the ones that were submitted, the justification for the increased fence height was really due to the surrounding neighborhood and the fact that they thought that it would be consistent with the Linden House, Newfields, and Crown Hill. However, this reasoning is not a practical difficulty, and therefore staff is not supportive of this request. If you have any questions, please let me know.
All right, thank you, staff. We will move to the petitioner rebuttal. Anybody wanting to speak? Again, you'll have a total of 5 minutes.
Sarah Hempstead again. I will speak in rebuttal. The practical difficulty in this case is that this site operates as one campus site with 3-year-olds to 18-year-olds moving throughout the day throughout the site, building to building. The reason that a playground fence does not adequately shelter the students in this case is because it operates, again, differently than a single-site elementary school might operate. In addition, the main practical difficulty of a solution like screening through landscape or through a very short fence is that it is not a necessary deterrent to keep dangerous individuals off of our site, whether that is on foot or in vehicles. We could put technically a 20-foot fence there or a 2-foot fence there. There is space there, so the technical difficulty is not a height limitation per se. The technical difficulty is we need a fence of a sufficient height to deter intruders from our site. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Michigan Road has a lot of problems, but this fence would not be one of them. Our problem there is the number of cars going up and down Michigan Road, the speeding. Some of the neighbors think that this fence will be a deterrent for the speed because the people will slow down and see the fence to see what's going on. So I think that it would be very difficult for someone traveling down Michigan Road or someone to see the difference between a 3-foot fence and a 6-foot fence because of the elevation of the grounds and the surroundings. So I would strongly urge you to pass this and give them the variance to make this fence. I totally support it, and all my neighbors support it.
We have hundreds of families that we know are in support of this and would be happy to come and support it if necessary. We have prospective families who ask all of the time, interested in our school, about when this fence will be installed so that they can be ensured that their children will be safe. Everyone understands that a 3-foot fence will not protect the size of campus and the number of buildings that we have, especially with a 1/4-mile extension going across that is open and exposed. And so we know that we have large community support, not only from all of our neighbors, but from hundreds of families who want this to protect their children when they come to school every day.
Chairman and members, a comment was made just a few moments ago that I want to reiterate, and that is we have these standards to protect our residences and residential use. And when we have our neighbors and our residents who are in support of this, I think it speaks for itself that this is something that they believe adds to the protection of their neighbors. So I would again urge support for a variance on this development standard. Thank you.
Okay, I'll ask the board if they have any questions. And if not, testimony complete, I will direct the board to go ahead and cast their votes using the ballots on petition 2022 DV1 023.
DV1023, 3 votes cast. Luna voted yes. Nelson, yes. Boone, yes. 3 yes votes, 0 no votes. This variance petition is approved. Okay, we can move on to the next case whenever you are ready, Heather. Thank you. 2022 DV1028, 5420 East Thompson Road, Franklin Township, Council District 18, Zone C4, map Thompson Road, LLC by Andy M. Metzel, requesting a variance of development standards of the Consolidated Zoning and Subdivision Ordinance to provide for a drive-through restaurant with 34 parking spaces, maximum 22 parking spaces permitted. All persons speaking on this today, please step forward to be sworn in. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalty for perjury to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Ms. Metzel, there is a remonstrator here if they've been provided an exhibit.
Let me get that to them. Are you ready? Sorry.
Will you state your name and address for the record, please?
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Andy Metzel. I'm an attorney at the Taft Law Firm at 1 Indiana Square, Suite 3500, Indianapolis, Indiana 46204. It is my pleasure to appear before you today on behalf of petition number 2022 DV1028. I have accompanying me with me the petitioner from MAP Thompson Road LLC, the managing principal, Mr. Aaron Boyle. He's seated to my left and your right, and also Morgan Hyam, and she is also on behalf of the petitioner. They are also, Mr. Boyle is also the managing principal for Mid-Atlantic Properties, which is the developer of the proposed development on this site. This site is located, as we mentioned, at 5420 East Thompson Road. The proposed user at this location is a Starbucks. They intentionally selected this site due to its size. It is approximately 1.3 acres. We know that the site is sufficient not only for the construction of a new building, a new Starbucks at this location, but it is also sufficient for the parking that is needed and the other amenities for the public. We have had a lot of contact with folks in the neighborhood, including the Franklin Township Civic League. They did review the petition and took no position at this point. We have in your packet of materials at tab number 8 a letter of support you will see from the council member in District 18, Mr. Michael Paul Hart, Councilman Hart, supporting the request. And I want to speak a little bit about the nature of the request. This is a development standards variance request to provide parking in excess of the maximum parking allowed for this particular development. The parking requirement is based upon the size of the structure. The proposed structure in this case is 2,225 feet. Maximum number of spaces is 22. If you look at the cover of the materials that I provided you, you can see sort of a yellow shaded area. That's the entire site. It goes north-south lengthwise along East Thompson Road. It's very close to the intersection of Emerson and Thompson Road, if you're familiar with that area. That particular area, if you look kindly at tab 2, you can see the zoning designations of the parcels that are immediately around the site. There is immediately to the west a large Kroger that has been developed, a Kroger fueling station that is immediately adjacent, a number of C4 uses across the street. There's also some self-storage immediately to the south. All of those C4 uses. The property itself is C4 commercial. The use is consistent with the comprehensive plan, which is contained at tab 3 in your materials, which recommends regional and community commercial typology. Again, I want to focus, though, on the variance of development standards. If you kindly turn to tab 4 in your materials, what you'll see there is a site plan for the site, and it'll show you the layout. There are a number of things that Starbucks has taken into account with regard to this particular development. It is notable that your petitioner and Mid-Atlantic Properties has actually developed in excess of 10 different Starbucks around the state of Indiana, probably closer to 15. They have a lot of experience in knowing what is needed for new sites and new locations. It's not uncommon. Probably most of the folks who are in attendance in this room have either visited a Starbucks or had someone bring them a Starbucks, or they've been to a site at one time or another. And the older locations, usually a much smaller footprint, are notably ones that are probably fraught with traffic problems. So what they are really trying to do and be very intentional in paying attention to is the kinds of customer traffic that they're getting, the kind of car traffic that they're getting, and make sure that the new sites that they're developing accommodate all of those particular issues. Now, at the request of staff, we made sure that we provided a drive aisle on the outside of the drive-through area so that cars, if someone were to change their mind or realize they didn't have their wallet, they could actually leave the premises should they be going through the drive-through. We did that at staff's request. Additionally, we widened the entrance, the ingress and egress point off of Thompson Road at the request of DPW. So we're making an effort to really be accommodating to the other folks in the community who have reached out, and also to DPW requests, as well as what staff has requested us to do. But there are certain things that we know, and if you could kindly draw your attention to tab 6. These are the information points that actually support the findings of fact for the variance of development standards request. And you've heard in the first petition on your docket today this term practical difficulties, but I want to talk specifically about practical difficulties associated with this user for this property. As I've mentioned, we've been intentional about the selection of this site with the 1.38 acres. We know that this site can actually accommodate the building, amenities for 40-plus customers, and also parking in excess of the the maximum standard, which says only 22 spaces. For a typical restaurant, it makes sense that you would have this ratio per 100 square feet, one parking place. Starbucks is not a typical restaurant, but there is nothing within the ordinance that really contemplates the kind of operation that Starbucks has. If you think about a typical restaurant, you think about a place that their menu is food-driven. Starbucks' menu is beverage-driven. They have food, but it's not the concentration of the service that they provide. If you think about a typical restaurant use, most folks who attend meals at restaurants have more than one person in a vehicle. They sit down, they stay, they leave more than one person in a vehicle. Starbucks traffic, Starbucks consumers we have a world of history. They've not only developed in Indiana, developed around the United States, developed around the world. There's a difference between a downtown location and one that would be located on East Thompson Road. We know from experience that most people who are attending Starbucks near East Thompson Road are going to be single to maybe a couple of folks in a vehicle visiting that location one at a time. It drives a lot of traffic, and we're aware of that. And we're trying to do everything we can to make sure that we don't have practical difficulties associated with this use at this site. Most of the times when you hear a development standards variance related to parking, people are seeking less parking than is actually required. We're not seeking less parking. We're seeking more parking, 12 more spaces than the 22 required. It's only 34 spaces. There is sufficient space on site, and it doesn't come at a sacrifice to any of the other amenities. There's ample space on this site to provide required sidewalks, which we're doing. There's ample space to required landscaping, to provide landscaping, which we're doing. That's at tab 5 in your materials. And that's also to protect and add as a buffer between the residential properties to the north and this commercial site. So we have sidewalks, landscaping. We're installing a huge investment in drainage at this site. We've added a wider ingress-egress point at the request of DPW, and we can still fit 34 parking spaces. Now, you know, when the Kroger that's immediately nearby sought a variance of development standards with this enormous site that they have, they were asking to underpark by 300 spaces. We're asking for additional parking because we know we need it. The Starbucks at this location will have approximately 40 seats inside and about 15 to 20 seats outside for patio service, weather permitting, of course, in Indiana. And so we know that we will have high traffic volume. If you look at the statistics that are contained on that page, items tab 6, at the highest peak hours, you can have as much as what they call tickets, 125 tickets within that 2-hour period of time. 125 tickets is 125 orders, 125 vehicles potentially coming in during peak hours. The average during peak hours is 26.6 vehicles on site. The average during regular hours is about 24 vehicles on site. To say that we only can use 22 parking spaces when we have room for 34 spaces actually creates a practical difficulty for several reasons. In the operations, the efficiencies, the loss of the use of that space, because if we're not going to use it for parking, what is it for? That's why we chose a site that is this large, because we know it can accommodate the parking, not sacrificing anything else for this property. So another critical point is that Starbucks has about 10 employees on site at any given time. Those employees need to be able to park on the premises. And while it may not be the case that every single employee has their own car, in the state of Indiana, it is highly common that every single employee has its own car. So we have to be able to account for that. We have 22 spaces. The employees take 10 of them with parking. Now we're down to 12. 2 designated for handicap parking. Now we're down to 10. It does not provide sufficient parking for an operation that is not a traditional restaurant and is clearly distinguishable. So we know that under every circumstance that it may not be what is desired to have more parking, but it's not considerably more parking. We think under the circumstances it's warranted. We do have support for that. We have provided the information at tab 6 to supplement the findings of fact that you have before you. And I'd be happy to answer questions about this, but I will say this. Added parking also does 3 things. It alleviates pressure on the drive-through. It reduces the potential for overflow parking on parcels that are not ours. We have 1 point of entrance onto Thompson Road. We certainly do not want traffic backing up onto Thompson Road. And to give people the opportunity to park and also use the double drive-through as designed, it will alleviate those pressure points. So we're really trying to be thoughtful about this, trying to make the most use of the property and not have land that is not being used in a productive manner, still provide landscaping, still provide something new that's a benefit to the community. And we think that this is a wonderful opportunity for Starbucks. So I'll end by saying this. I've been doing zoning-related work for more than 20 years, and there were points when I would go to communities and talk to neighborhood groups and propose different kinds of developments, and they would always say to me, "Can't you just build a Starbucks?" So we're a little bit surprised when we say we really want to build a new Starbucks, and yet we're recommended for denial by staff. I understand the comprehensive plan, or excuse me, the development ordinance has to be upheld, but the whole reason for allowing people to seek variances is when you have reasons like this, that it can provide safety, it can provide efficiency, it can provide maximized use of the entire parcel, not at the sacrifice of any of the benefits that we're bringing to the lot, and we think that that justifies the variance to be approved, and we respectfully request your approval. I'm happy to answer questions if you have them.
Okay, seems like there's no questions at this time. So unless anybody else wants to speak in support, I will go ahead and invite any remonstrants up to speak for their time. As you come up, please do state your name and address for the record, and you will have a total of 15 minutes for comments.
Good afternoon, members of the board. My name is Deanne Farthing. I am here on behalf of the remonstrator, which is 5426 East Thompson LLC, which is the owner of the property directly adjacent to the east of where this variance is. My address for my office is 8500 East Keystone Crossing, Suite 470. We are here today as a remonstrator as the petitioner is seeking a variance to increase the parking spaces allowed by over 50%. As already mentioned, the intended use is for a Starbucks restaurant with 2 drive-through lanes. And our client who owns the property, as I mentioned, directly adjacent to this property, believes that there are several issues with this. I do have a packet with some pictures that I would like to provide to each of you, if that's okay. Absolutely. I've already provided one to them. Okay. Do you want me to go ahead and hand this over here, hon? Mr. Eulenich is the planner to this. Thank you. As I'm handing you these documents, you'll see that on the first 2 pages, we've written out 5 different objections to this variance. First is that we believe that the additional parking spaces will serve only to increase the amount of traffic on the subject property. As petitioner has already indicated, Starbucks are different than normal restaurants and historically have very heavy traffic on their locations. We believe that the additional parking would simply entice additional patrons to the location and cause extreme congestion on the site, which would push traffic back onto Thompson Road, causing both traffic and safety issues with patrons trying to both come to and leave the property. To worsen this issue, the access point to Thompson Road in this area is only a 2-way road with no center turn lane. If you look at Exhibit A, I've showed a picture of an aerial view from this area of Thompson Road. Any backup onto Thompson Road would cause a standstill in either location, and it would completely obstruct the traffic flow. The second reason we are objecting to the petitioner's variance is that no other fast food restaurant along Thompson Road to the east of Emerson has a site plan that includes only only a one-way navigation. If you look at the site plan, when individuals pull into the site, you can see that traffic can only go one way. There's not enough room around all of the parking spots to allow for 2-way navigation on site. If, however, the variance was denied and the 12 parking spaces which are sought were not there, that would allow the petitioner to redevelop this site and potentially allow for that two-way navigation, which would decrease the possibility of that traffic backing up onto Thompson Road and the congestion that that would cause. In addition, the location and the access point of this subject property really does exacerbate the potential traffic issues. The access point on this property is on the eastern boundary, almost on the property line, immediately next to the adjacent property. If you look at the site plan, you will see that in order to lessen the traffic and safety concerns, our client, when they develop their property, which is also Zone C4, would have to push their access point much further down Thompson Road. However, when you look at Exhibits E and F, you will see that the access point to this property, in conjunction with the apartments further east, are still going to be much closer than any other access point that is currently on Thompson Road. We have reached out to the petitioner to discuss the potential of a mutual driveway onto this site. Again, we have not heard back from them in regards to, working through that. However, even if we did work toward a mutual driveway access point, which would lengthen the driveway for traffic flow, we would still want the variance denied so that, again, there could be two-way navigation throughout the site, similar with the other fast food restaurants on Thompson Road, to eliminate the potential congestion issues. If the mutual access point is not denied, or if the mutual access point is not agreeable, then we believe that the denial of the additional parking spaces would allow them to redevelop this site plan so that they could move their access point to the other side of the property, therefore creating a larger distance between the access point of this property, the future development of our property, and the apartment complex down the road. You will also indicate that no other property in this area east of Thompson Road has a single access point. All other properties share parking lots and likely have cross easements, allowing for that inter-navigation on each of the sites and keeping that off of Thompson Road. The denial of the variance will include additional parking spaces, along with the willingness of the petitioner to enter into a mutual driveway or access point, could be accomplished to make these two properties consistent with all other properties along Thompson Road. We would lastly include that approving the variance as submitted would greatly interfere with the development of the adjacent property. It would decrease any interest in the adjacent property by lowering its overall value. The adjacent property owner would be forced to try to market this property with few access point options in an area that would likely be very congested with an overpacked Starbucks site backing up onto Thompson Road, which in this area is simply a two-lane road with no center turn lane. For these reasons, we would request the board to deny the variance. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We will move to staff comments.
Thank you, Chairperson Nelson, members of the board. With this request for 34 parking spaces, the petitioner indicates that the practical difficulty is for exceeding the maximum number of spaces does not allow, not exceeding the number, not being able to exceed the number of maximum spaces does not allow address on-site parking, employee parking needs, and provide for both a neighborhood gathering space and place and grab-and-go operation. Staff would note that there are 3 bus routes, Indigo routes 14, 16, and 20, that serve the Emerson and Thompson Road intersection. This is approximately a 1/4 mile east or west of the site, just east of Kroger. Many of the employees at Kroger access these bus routes. So as the popularity of mass transit increases, gas prices rise. the efficiency of mass transit would incur more people to use that, thus less people using cars, possibly reducing the need for cars on this site as well. As those routes would allow for the increased use of pedestrian accessibility and bicycles, because buses do have accommodations for bicycles too. The proposed site plan provides for a double lane ordering area. This double lane has 24 vehicle spaces in it, in addition to the 34 parking spaces requested, providing for 58 vehicle spaces on site. The design, instead of a single lane, theoretically would help facilitate prepaid and grab-and-go orders. If they were to move the prepaid and grab-and-go orders to the drive-through only, that would reduce the amount of parking for walk-in, grab-and-go, and leave on, where they're only parking for 1 or 2 minutes. And those spaces could instead be used for people that are using the dining room. Because the site has been cleared, staff believes there are no limitations in developing the site to meet the C4 standards, as similar adjacent properties have been developed without increased parking space variances. Any limitation that prevents the site from being developed otherwise would be specific to the use and not the site, and therefore would be a self-imposed practical difficulty. Staff would point out, though, that one of the reasons for limiting the amount of parking spaces is to help reduce the heat island effect in the city. When you increase the amount of parking spaces, you increase the amount of reflective asphalt surface area, which increases the heat island effect. It also impacts drainage. Petitioner indicates there's been a substantial investment of drainage. I would imagine this is above and beyond normal drainage investment due to the size of the excessive and extra parking spaces. For these reasons, staff does recommend denial of the petition, and we'll be happy to answer questions the board may have.
Does the board have any questions for staff? Okay, hearing none.
I have a question. If they agree to, because I see the view of all the business around that Starbucks, all the parkings are like connected. Is that something that you would be willing to agree if the Starbucks has access through the gas station? And if it overflows, would the Kroger agree to allow your customers to park there to have a small walk and get a coffee at your Starbucks?
Good questions. I'm going to let Mr. Boyle speak, but I do want him to mention to you the difference in grade between this site and the Kroger gas station. There's a pretty significant grade change there. Additionally, we have spoken with the remonstrator about his desire for us to improve his property as part of this request. We don't know what use could possibly go in next door. Starbucks has very strict lease covenants that could prohibit us from allowing just any user to come next door. And so we're not inclined to attach ourselves to them until we know. Doesn't mean the dialogue is finished. It just means that we can't guarantee that we would want to be connected to whatever they could place in there. It is a C4 property.
Thank you.
Mr. Boyle.
Yeah, and you have some very good questions. And so my name's Aaron Boyle. I'm with Midland Atlantic Properties. I'm the managing principal and the manager of the entity that's building this store. And my address is 3801 East 82nd Street. We did, when we contracted to buy the property that we're buying, we contacted the Kroger property to try to work a cross-access, and we actually tried to get them to allow us to share, to drain our stormwater towards their site. Everybody in the area has drainage problems. They've got a lot of underground water storage, and they really wouldn't talk to us much. So, I mean, cross-connectivity is a good thing, and it is helpful lots of times. And I've talked the petitioner to the remonstrator several times, and we've offered to work on a shared access. We offered to buy his property. We just can't seem to come to agree to terms. Obviously, we have a lease with Starbucks, and there's restrictions on use, and if we hook up to another property, we have to, those use restrict. Starbucks won't allow just anybody to go next to them, so they'd want to control what goes there, or they wouldn't want to hook up. So it's not just me, but we're willing to have the conversation. We've told him that, and we've tried to have the conversation. And like I said, we've offered to buy his property. Well, just the main point I wanted to make, just regarding Starbucks, is, like Andy said, they're kind of a unique restaurant, and I think they have a lot of employees. I think they're going to use 10 to 12 parking spaces for employees. They have 3 spaces for mobile pickup spots, and then 2 spaces are handicapped. So that leaves like 5 to 7 spaces for customers. The store has 40 seats inside, and 10 to 20 outside, depending on how they lay it out. So if we 22 spaces just doesn't work. 34 is a minimum they want, and if we don't get the variance, it simply just doesn't seem like it's going to work for them. I'm a little baffled by the remonstrator's argument that a Starbucks next to him takes his value down, because we, as a shopping center owner, love to have Starbucks because they increase your value. And again, we've responded, we've talked with them, we've talked with their attorney, we've offered to work with them in the future. And we're still willing to have that conversation. But we do respectfully ask you to approve the variance so we can build this Starbucks, and then we can continue to talk with him.
Thank you.
I have a staff question. Given the location of this driveway, what's the minimum separation that the adjacent property would have for their driveway in the future?
I apologize, I didn't hear you after separation.
The minimum separation of their driveway, so we have the Starbucks proposed driveway, and for future development, how far away would that driveway need to be for whatever is developed on that property?
That generally is not regulated by the, I do not believe that is regulated by the zoning ordinance. I could be mistaken, but that is typically handled by the permitting office. I'm not too familiar with that distance personally.
If I may.
Okay, yeah, the petitioner may continue with their.
Thank you. And I appreciate the comments from staff. DPW takes a look at those driveway separations, and so, even looking at the photo that you have on your screens there, and images that we have in the materials, but even on the screen there, you would see that the driveway that we've proposed is aligned with the driveway that is across the street. Makes perfect sense. To the extent that this image that you are seeing from GIS shows a house on the remonstrator's property, that's been taken down and that's been demolished. So the idea that that driveway is something that exists and is operational, that's not serving any purpose at this point on the property that is next door to us. And I want to point out that specifically many of the objections that appear in the remonstrator's materials, we have heard them, we have been engaged in a dialogue with them. They didn't find this site objectionable when they offered to sell the property to us before we bought the one next door. Most of the objections that they state are objections to the nature of the use, but that's not what we're here to talk about. This property is already zoned C4. It's completely eligible for this use. The use is not in question. What is the only issue for your consideration today is this variance request for 12 spaces. And we know from years and years of operational history that these 12 spaces will impact safety and will provide more safety, more access, not bring more customers. That's the conundrum about the ordinance, the way that it's drafted and applied to this particular use and this particular property. In order for us to have the parking that would actually fit our operations, we have to build a bigger building. Now, if we build a bigger building, that is what will bring more customers, not building more parking. We don't want to have to build a bigger building to get more parking. Can you see how that equation goes on ad infinitum? How big of a lot do you need? You just keep building a bigger Starbucks to provide more parking. It just doesn't make sense, hence the need for the variance. We know we need a building that's 2,225 square feet. We know that that will accommodate the employees that we intend to hire in this community. We know that that will safely accommodate users, customers. We know that there are bike paths that are nearby. We're providing more than is even required, bicycle stands on this site. We're not sacrificing those kinds of amenities in order to get the 12 spaces. We're providing all of it, and we can do that safely on this site. So we think that this makes sense. We do appreciate the comments from the remonstrator. We want to be a good neighbor. We can't be forced to improve somebody else's property next door. That's not actually what the law says in order to get their support for this petition. But we do want to be a good neighbor. We'd like to know what they intend to ultimately develop on that site. But we know that we can safely develop this site in a way that makes operational sense and doesn't present a practical difficulty for the loss of use of the property, not being able to use the spaces we know we can accommodate, for operational efficiencies, for our employees, and for safety of our customers. So we do respectfully request your approval. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, opposition, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you so much. We would indicate that we are here really seeking a denial of the 12 parking spaces. For the same reasons that the staff has indicated, this would force patrons to the Starbucks to use the drive-through if they're doing those pickup orders. Even the petitioner has indicated that they'll have 125 orders in an hour in a Starbucks, and that's typical. That really is a concern. If they have that many orders and they have patrons coming to the location, parking in those parking spaces simply to run in, grab their coffee, and run out, then the navigation on the site and the in and out from the site really is tremendous. Whereas if we limit the parking spaces that are on that site, force those patrons to go through the 2 drive-through lanes, that's going to increase the efficiency on the site, which will help alleviate concerns on Thompson Road. Again, Thompson Road in this location is just a 2-way road with no center lane. We have all been to a Starbucks and similar restaurants that are in high demand, and every single one of them causes backups, most definitely at certain peak hours of the day. And while, many people do love Starbucks, I love Starbucks myself, do you want a Starbucks directly adjacent to your property when it's not developed appropriately? We're not against a Starbucks being in this location. We just don't want both the access point and the inter-navigation on this site to negatively impact our site. And unfortunately, based on where the location of this is, on a 2-way road with no center turn lane, it's going to be very difficult to now market this potential our adjacent property to a new owner, because you absolutely are going to have backup onto Thompson Road. There's no question about it, and that's a safety concern as well. Denial of the parking spaces, redevelopment of the site to be consistent with every other fast food restaurant that has 2-way navigation, forcing patrons to go through the driveway likely will likely decrease congestion on that site and alleviate those issues. Thank you so much.
All right, any further questions from the board? If not, I will direct the board to cast your votes on 2022 DV1 028.
(2022) DV1 028, 3 votes cast. Nelson voted yes. Luna, yes. Boone, yes. 3 yes votes, 0 no votes. This petition is approved. 2022 DV1 11024 East Thompson Road, Franklin Township, Council District 25, Zone DA, FWFF. David A. and Leanne B. Rutherford requesting a variance of development standards of a consolidated zoning and subdivision ordinance to provide for a 3.01 acre lot for a single-family dwelling with 15 feet of lot frontage and lot width, minimum 125-foot lot frontage, 250-foot lot width required. All persons speaking on this today, please step forward to be sworn in. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is David Rutherford. My offices are at 8801 Southeastern Avenue, Indianapolis. And I'm here on behalf of the petitioner, which happens to be myself and my wife. I told somebody the other day I've been doing this for 38 years, did hundreds of these cases. I don't know that I've ever been more nervous than when you do something for yourself, because this is part of a dream that my family and I have had for a long, long time. And the dream starts around those cows that you see on that picture, as crazy as that is. So I wanted to start there. I appreciate staff coming out and taking a picture of those guys and his girls. We have what I believe to be the last purebred Angus firm. In fact, I think the last purebred cattle operation in all of Indianapolis. And my family and I have been in that business as a sidelight. The IRS thinks we make money, but we know better. It is a great hobby. It's a great way to raise kids. It creates a lifestyle that we love, relationships throughout the United States that we love. And over the years, my brother and I grew up showing cattle there, and my children showed cattle there. My brother's kids showed the cattle we produced there. We love doing it. We give tours on the farm to city kids and small groups, Girl Scouts. Anybody that wants to come out a couple of times a year will come out, and anybody who's participated in that with me knows that that is my passion, and I love nothing better than to show people who've never been around that kind of a facility and cattle like that what the reality is, how they're raised, how they're cared for, how they're loved. My kids tease that I take better care of my cows than I did them. But the plan here, the reason we're in front of all you today is that my wife and I would like to build a house on the back of the portion of this farm that we're going to be able to preserve after my parents pass. This is a little bit confusing on the base map or the site map that you've got up there, but my parents own roughly 145 acres that is surrounded on three sides by roads. It is bisected by two major creeks. Actually, Buck Creek is more of a small river. It drains the entire far east side of Indianapolis. And so there's a lot of floodplain, a lot of floodway on the property. It's a perfect cattle farm. And it's also, I'm a development attorney, and I recognize that a lot of that is undevelopable. And so our intentions is to keep the ridge that contains the existing buildings and all the lots and the pens and the waters and all of the related cattle improvements that we've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on in most of my life building. I'd like to keep that when my parents pass and be able to then let my brothers and sisters who want some money out of the estate be able to develop the high ground, and we would end up with the cattle farm, which is where the cattle currently are housed. So we would end up preserving roughly 85 to 90 acres of all of that area there that would continue to be a cattle farm for as long as my back holds out and my wife allows it. But first step of that is that we'd like to build a house back about 1,300 feet off the road where those two floodplains come together. And so we've created a lot that the driveway runs alongside of the existing barns. It is surrounded on the west by a 5-acre tract that contains my parents' existing home. So if you see that lot to the left there, that is a lot that was cut out of the farm for mortgage purposes so they could build a very nice home back there. The edge of the floodplain actually runs right around the edge of our lot, so you can see where the floodplain from Big Run Creek runs there, and then the floodplain on the side is the floodplain for Buck Creek. So there is no access to that lot from either the west because of my parents' home and their lot, or from the north or from the east because of the floodplains and the floodway. The only access to that lot is truly Thompson Road. And we have a practical difficulty with the access point because there is a very steep hill. The same floodplain of Buck Creek that we want to build on is actually also on Thompson Road. So the crest of that hill is right at that driveway point. And then it falls off probably 30 feet down to Buck Creek, the bridge over Buck Creek, And it is steep, and it is blind. And as a guy who traverses that 3 or 4 times every day, going out there to feed cattle and running equipment in and out of there, that's the only safe spot. So from a public safety perspective, we need to be able to share that existing drive point. If we owned the whole farm, that would still be where the house needed to come out, because there is no safe point between that driveway and Buck Creek to be able to get out. Now, someday, after my parents pass, their will provides that my wife and I have the right to select as our part of their estate all this bottom ground and value it at farm prices, because my parents really, really want this cattle farm preserved. It's been an important part of our family's past, and they want it to be an important part of our future. At that time, we will own roughly 800 foot of frontage on Thompson Road. So we're not going to have a problem with lot width. We're not going to have a problem with lot frontage once we consolidate ownership after my parents' death. However, my parents are not ready to sell the whole farm today. There are substantial tax reasons why they don't want to sell it as well, and I really don't want to buy it today. We need to be able to take it out of the estate. My parents are both 86 years old. We're to the point in their lives where they need somebody close. I'm the son who lives close. We want to build our house next to theirs so that we can help take care of them in their old age. That's important in our family. So we would end up sharing their driveway, and as you can kind of see from that plot plan there, the driveway curves outside. It's within our 15 feet all the way back about 90% of the way to our lot, and then it curves off to the left. Our lot would actually not access right there. It would access about 150 feet in front of my parents' house. There's a high spot in the drive, so we call that the split point. So for purposes of the sign I'm going to talk about here in a little bit to solve the public safety issue that we've heard from staff, that's the split point we talk about is back there. That's where the house would be. So there's comments in the staff report that address the width of the lot and as if that is a problem. This is a flag lot. Flag lots are actually allowed, but because this is narrow enough, that's a concern that they have. We're not building up in the 15 feet, so it's really not fair, quite frankly, to talk about that we've only got 15 feet of lot width. That's just where the driveway goes. The utilities are already back there. It's just a strip that provides frontage that makes it work. And we've got a practical difficulty of some existing barns. There's 3 sets of barns there that are immediately east of that drive. There's only really truly 25 feet or so from the barn to that west property line of this portion of the farm or my parents' lot. And so that's where the driveway's got to go. So we can't buy the barns, so we have to fit that driveway around the edges of these large cattle barns that exist that will also stay. So I don't know that you've had a set of facts like this before. Again, I think I'm the only cattle farmer left, and certainly the scenario where we would try to go back on the prettiest part of this farm and build a very nice custom home. And my parents have actually approved it, and they're pretty picky, so that's a good sign for me. That's one of the reasons we didn't build before. We couldn't afford to build a house nice enough to satisfy their desires, but we're going to build a very nice house, host future family reunions on that place, all the good stuff. We don't have any remonstrance at all. I had phone calls from 3 of the neighbors. I mean, we've lived in this area for 50, 60 years. We know the people around it. A lot of the new residents are in subdivisions on ground my dad sold off around this property years ago. Everybody I talked to said, hey, do you need any help? I said, no, I think this is a pretty straightforward case. We did not actually realize that staff was going to be opposed, but they are, and I get it. It's a flag lot. But there's no remonstrance. We did go to the Civic League after inviting residents to come. No one showed up. The Civic League voted unanimously in favor of it. Kathy Burton's got some health issues. I don't think she was able to put the letter together, but I was there when they voted on it, so they supported it. We also have letters from our city county councilor, Brian Mowry, and also a very similar letter, maybe identical, from Aaron Freeman, our state senator, both of whom I've known for a long time, are familiar with what we do, want this property to be preserved, know this is part of the plan, and are very much in support of the variance. Again, this is kind of an unusual scenario because we're trying to do this as part of a plan to actually preserve something, as opposed to coming up here and saying we want to do this as part of a plan to develop something. And as a developer myself and as a development attorney, this is an odd seat for me as well, but I really, truly want to preserve this. This is a gorgeous piece of property. It is floodway and floodplain, and it just doesn't need to be developed. Someday it may make sense for this to be a park at the end of my run at this if none of the kids want to take over it. And I hope we can preserve it for that kind of a purpose as well. It's a part of a linear park plan for the city at some point. But again, I want to listen to everything that staff's got to say here. I respect the fact that in general, some of these flag lots, for whatever things have caused problems for them. I've not personally experienced that. I've probably done 50 of them for clients over my life. I do know that one of the issues that has brought up, which I do believe makes sense, is that we make sure that there's not any confusion from people who are trying to find our house. So I intend, for my own sanity and also to make sure that people can find us, to have a sign that we would place, and I'll put this as a variance commitment, that there would be a sign placed at the end of the driveway at Thompson Road that would identify the farm address, my parents' address, and our house address, so that people would know that all three of those addresses share that sign. And then back at that split point on the lot, we would also put a sign that pointed our address to the right and my parents' address straight, to try and make sure that, again, delivery people aren't turning around in the wrong driveway, and that the emergency vehicles can also get back in there. The last thing I would like to talk about is emergency vehicle access and the fact that it's a gravel drive. It has to stay a gravel drive. It is a farm. I haul manure down that drive. It's a mess when we do that, and we clean it up to make my mom happy. But I guarantee you that the large equipment that we take down that driveway several times a week is larger and heavier than any piece of emergency equipment that's ever going to come down through there. We designed that ourselves, so it's wide. It's got a fantastic base. There's plenty of clearance to be able to get through there. There's plenty of spots. There's 3 spots actually down that driveway where you can pass. At each of the barn lots, there's a spot where incoming traffic could pull off, because it happens. All right, right now we have UPS delivery trucks that come down there. If I meet them in the driveway, we've designed spots to be able to pull over on a graveled area and let them pass. The other thing is that we do a better job of maintaining our drive with the equipment we have than the city of Indianapolis does in maintaining Thompson Road in the snowstorm, I assure you. We are the first ones out. Many years, I'm the guy that's plowing the road carefully with our equipment to get around to the other houses that are on that farm. There's 3 other residences associated with the farm operation around there. We clear all those ourselves, and I'm always done with those. Hours, maybe sometimes even days before the city is done. So there's not going to be an issue with, in a snowstorm, emergency vehicles not being able to get to us. If they can get to the end of our driveway, they'll have clear sailing coming up ours, because it'll be 15-foot wide, cleared with a big blade. So I think we've solved those kinds of issues. And again, it's an unusual case. You got a flag lot on a farm that has equipment, has an established drive, and is part of a larger plan to preserve what I think is a truly unique amenity in Indianapolis. And for some crazy reason, I want to do it. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have, and look forward to responding after staff.
All right. No one else is here, but I'll still ask to make sure. Is there anyone here opposed to 2022 DV1031? Seeing no one, let's go ahead and move to staff.
Thank you, Chairperson Nelson and members of the board. Staff is recommending denial of the petition request. The DA district requires a minimum lot width of 250 feet and a minimum street frontage of 125 feet. The existing driveway would be 15 feet, and that would be considered their street frontage, obviously creating what is called a flag lot. So the driveway goes approximately 1,000 feet back, and then to the east it extends 313 feet. Flag lots are not permitted under the ordinance, specifically due to the standards of the DA district in terms of the minimum street frontage and lot width. The reason why staff is not supportive is mainly due to safety concerns, especially when it comes to locating the dwelling. When you have a flag lot, it typically creates where one house sits in front of another where you can't see the other one in the back, where it can make it difficult for visitors, delivery people, emergency personnel to find the location of the house or the dwelling. More specifically, Thompson Road is considered a primary collector and only provides 1 lane in each direction going west and east. Considering that flag lots make it difficult to find the actual dwelling, we find that it could create unsafe driving conditions, where if you can't find the house, it could stop traffic. And really on Thompson Road, there is no turnaround. And again, this is why staff is recommending denial. Please let me know if you have any further questions.
All right, we can move to rebuttal for the petitioner, 5 minutes.
Thank you. Again, I respect staff's opinion on these, and I think there's situations where you're talking with a truly just residential-only scenario where this might make sense. But I want to be clear that back where our home is located, our lot is 323 feet wide. So there's a 3-acre tract back there that is 323 feet wide. So the ordinance requires only 250. So we have more than the typical minimum lot width for the area where the house would actually be located. And in fact, for 95%, maybe more of my entire career doing this, that is actually how the city of Indianapolis measured the front building setback line on these kinds of lots. And I'm really not sure why we keep flipping back and forth on how that's done, but they measure today the building setback line is 30 feet off the edge of the right-of-way. Well, that works in a subdivision lot or if we were up along the road, but in this case where you're 1,000 feet off the road, and there's no way we're going to put a house in the 15-foot wide strip. To me, the building setback line ought to be measured at the front wall of the home on these kinds of lots, and for whatever reason, that's not happening here. So, but that's the only issue that we're dealing with as far as lot width is it's just not being measured based on the building setback line where the house is. And frankly, if we platted this lot, we would create our own building setback line, and we'd create it back at the front of the house. So this is only an issue because we did not go through the platting process in the lot, which should not be necessary, in my opinion, just to establish a building setback line. But the only other issue I would tell you is that, again, we respect the idea of the emergency vehicles and people who are coming to visit, customers of the farm, whatever, being able to find us. I'm actually going to probably have a home office back in that house at some point as I get older. I assure you we'll be on Google Maps in today's world. People don't look at the signage, they look at their stinking phone, so they'll be able to find us that way. But there'll be a sign out at the road that will make it easy for emergency vehicles and anyone else to be able to see exactly where we are. So we don't think that'll really be an issue. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have, and I would ask on behalf of my wife and I and our entire family for your support of this, please.
All right, board, is there any questions? It seems like there is a commitment for signage on the site, so let's take that into consideration as we cast our vote, and let's go ahead and cast the votes for 2022 DV1 031.
Two 2022 DV1 031, 3 votes cast. Luna voted yes. Nelson, yes. Boone, yes. 3 yes votes, 0 no votes. This variance is approved.
Thank you very much.
All right, do we have any additional business to come before the board today?
I have findings of fact from previous petitions which cannot be adopted, but because we never know what next month will bring, I will obtain signatures from the members who are present here today, being 2022 DV1 008, which I believe was heard at the May hearing. No, the April 5th hearing, which can be signed today by board member Luna, but cannot be adopted, and 2022 DV1 018, which can be signed by board members Boone and Nelson, not Luna, but cannot be adopted today either. And with that, I have no additional business.
All right, then this meeting is adjourned.